What would you do if you had a month off from work? What could you do if you had an entire month off from work? I came to be interested in the idea of sabbaticals when we arrived here in Pittsburgh. My wife and my 18-month-old son, we arrived in 2000. And we lead a local church, and we promptly took that local church from 30 attendees to 25 in about a week. And then we started seeing growth and more growth. And we had to move out of our rented facility. And so we started building a building. And when I say we started to build a building, we started to build a building. And I'm the pastor that can stand in front of people and talk, but not too good with tools. And so on the work days, they tell me I had my tool belt on backwards. So I turn it around. And then 5 minutes later, they tell me, you have your tool belt on backwards. And so I was that guy. We finally got the building done, and that was one of the most exhausting things I'd ever done. You might think it'd be time to take some rest at that time, but it's the absolute opposite thing to do when you finally have a tool and a resource you've needed for the past 3 years to move your organization forward. We ramped up, not down. And then around 2004, 2005, wiped out, tired. But we're still here. We've been there for 17 years. And in about 60 days, I'll take my 4th 1-month sabbatical. And it's been an amazing process. I'm so glad we started the conversation. We have a situation in our society that the idea of a sabbatical is extremely rare. And it may be because the only word that we know that ends in -holic that we like is workaholic. We think that's an okay word, as if it's something, a badge of honor or something. But back in 2005, Harvard Business Review did a study on this idea of presenteeism. We all know what absenteeism is. We don't just not show up for work. We have such a workaholic attitude. We will go to work when we should stay home. When we show up, what we're doing, we're spreading influenza A and influenza B. Instead, we should stay home, but we don't because that's frowned upon. Absenteeism. What we do instead is presenteeism. We clock in, but we check out. Your coworker, they clock in, but they check out. Your boss, they clock in, well, maybe not clock in. They just go to their office door and shut the door. Yeah, they're disengaged. A 2004 Harvard Business Review study said that was costing American businesses about $100 billion a year. A more recent study by Global Challenge said it's costing $1.5 trillion a year to American businesses, whereas absenteeism is down here at about 150. It's a 10-to-1 ratio. A 10-to-1 ratio that requires some activity, some action that we'll have to do. Because we have no space in our lives. We live without margin. Those are my notes for this talk. Without margin. Don't you just want to take that to the hammock and read that? Doesn't it just make you go, oh yeah. There's no capacity for crisis when we live marginless lives. There's no space for spontaneity that needs to be a spot in our lives. We're wired for work, but that's not all we're wired for. There's no time to think if we're going to live marginless lives. And I understand now at age 51 that having 1 week off is good, but having 2 weeks off is more than twice as good when they're 2 weeks off in a row. The power of contiguous time. And some industries might think, well, I'm not sure that can happen. We're definitely at an industry right now that has no problem with the idea of sabbaticals, education. We're on a college campus. And you might think, well, that could never happen in my industry. And I would just almost literally beg you to at least consider it. Consider starting the conversation, even if it's going to be a 4 or 5 year conversation. Even if you never get a sabbatical, but it's for someone who's underneath you or comes after you that gets the sabbatical. Because the bottom line in your organization, whether you are for-profit or non-profit, the bottom line is, if it helps the bottom line, it'll get done. If it helps the bottom line, it'll get scheduled. And I'd like to urge you to consider that a sabbatical can increase the bottom line. And the idea of how it can help business is one idea is the idea of retention and recruiting. A recent Harris poll said that 57% of those that are being hired right now, especially of those that are a younger generation than me, value the benefits package as much as the compensation, as much as the salary. Translation, time is the new currency. Time is the new currency. Can't pay me more? Can I get more time off? Can I get more time off? Now the idea seems awkward to some people. Why, we're only give 2 weeks vacation. Why? Because that's the way we've always done it, which is the great way to kill your industry and kill your organization. You see, every organization I know of is limited in the compensation they can offer. We hire people. We just made a hire. We're limited in compensation that we can offer, but we're not limited. We have flexibility in the time off that we can offer our employees that we have. So you have that opportunity. The limited in compensation, but we're flexible in time off. And we just made a hire. We just hired a children's pastor from Duluth, Minnesota. If you don't know where Duluth is, just drive north until the flag changes. When the flag changes, you just went a little bit too far. You went into Canada, but that's where she's from. And when we offered her the compensation package, the salary amount, if she went to another church of similar size in a town of similar size, the compensation amount could have been much larger. But not when it came down to how much time off. We probably trumped any other offer she would have seen. And that's something we can do. So you get the benefit for the employer of the retention and recruiting of quality employees. Another one is the idea of re-engaging them. The capable, educated, trained workforce is what I hear about at Chamber of Commerce events. We want a capable, educated, trained workforce. That's why the city and the college has to work well together. We want a capable, educated, trained workforce. And I think, duh, who doesn't want a capable, educated, trained workforce? But what are you going to do when your capable, educated, trained workforce has families blowing up and her body's falling apart? What are you going to do then? What are you going to do when they're diminished, drained, and damaged? Just find more capable, educated, trained people and throw them away? I think not. Author Tim Keller puts it this way. The idea of a sabbatical can restore the diminished, not because your organization is diminishing people, but because life takes it out of us, especially if they're working hard. Restoring the diminished, replenishing the drained, and repairing the damaged. When you have that happen, what's going to happen to presenteeism? Which is going to help whatever your bottom line is, whether your bottom line is nickels and noses or your bottom line is profit. Another benefit to an organization is the return. When an employee comes back from being off work. My last week of a sabbatical, I am itching to get back in the saddle and can't wait for that opportunity. Is that how you are when you get back to the office after your last day of vacation? When people have been on spring break, right? And then when they come back, hey, when you ask them, how was your vacation? They go, man, I'm so glad to be back in the office. I couldn't wait to get back and get re-engaged. They don't. What if they did? What if your coworker was enthused because they got to really, truly disconnect from work while they were off? And they want to reconnect because we're not just wired. We think it would be cool just to go on cruises for the rest of our life. We'd eventually run out of purpose and realize this is not satisfying. This is not satisfying. What if your coworker was totally engaged? What if your boss came back from a sabbatical and was totally engaged? What if your direct report came back and was totally engaged? It is valuable to the possibility of having that bottom line being raised. Besides, how productive are you on the last day before you go on vacation, huh? And how productive are you on the first day when you come back from vacation? It's powerful to be able to say, I can't wait to come back. There's also benefit for the employee, not just for the employer. For the employee, there's a reprieve. Some of you are college students, you're still looking for that professional job. Some of you are in that role. But if you're going to get into a role where there's going to be any form of leadership, you're going to have a hard time finding when to find that switch and go off. Even if you're not literally on call 24/7, 365, the idea of is when do I quit thinking about work? When do I break away and disengage and live what is supposed to be called a life? We think, well, when things slow down, I'll do that when things slow down. When do things slow down? Let me know when that happens in your life so I can find that time. I've not been able to locate that in 51 years because when things seem to slow down, because right now we're in a busy season, it's the end of the quarter, we're in a busy season, it's the end of the fiscal year, when the busy season finals are coming up. Dude, I'm a pastor. It's Easter this Sunday. I understand busy season. So what happens when things do? Well, when things slow down, we'll do that. When things slow down, you've already got your top 10 list done, so you just move number 11 to 20 to the top 10, and you just keep on going. And you start running at 110%, and you realize, man, I'm getting a lot done at 110%. And you start thinking that pace is sustainable. It's not. It's not. All work and no play make Jack and Jill a dull employee, a dull coworker, a dull boss, a dull direct report, dull as in not sharp, not cutting edge, not on their game, not lifting the bottom line of your organization. Author Andy Stanley says this, life moves to a better place when you move at a sustainable pace. Another benefit for the employee is the idea of to revive, to get revived again. When I'm on my 1-month sabbatical, it takes me about a whole week before I realize, oh, what is this? This is my breath. Yeah, this is my pulse. It takes a week to unwind. I know some of you are listening to me going, dude, I think it takes you 2 weeks to unwind. You're kind of wound up, man. But that's because they have me speaking right now when normally I'd be in bed. So that's why. But it takes a week to unwind. And what's our typical American vacation look like? The Friday afternoon, the last Friday afternoon you're in the office before you go on vacation, you're not getting any work done. You're searching all your reservations online, and then you boogie off, and then the following Sunday you pull in at 9 p.m. in your driveway, you're back in the office on Monday morning, your bags aren't even unpacked. And you're like, ugh. That's called re-engaging. That was a reviving time in your life so that when you come back to work, you can fulfill the purposes that maybe you were created and designed for and thrive there. Or just see if you can keep getting the paycheck and hang in. That's not what any of us feel like we're called to do or called to be. We can do a whole lot more than that. Author Rick Warren has a good way to figure out how to balance the rhythm of this. And he says this: divert daily, withdraw weekly, and abandon annually. Another benefit of a sabbatical, if you have an entire month sabbatical, and that's just the definition I work with, 1 month off for every 2 years. 1 month off for every 2 years. That would be a not paid time. That's paid time during the sabbatical, and you can adjust that for however you want your industry wants to work, whether that's not just 1 month, but maybe 6 weeks, or maybe they got to work 3 or 4 years, but something where they have that opportunity, and they can see that coming. And it's paid time, and that's the opportunity there. But the idea is to rest and relax. 99% of Americans, of which I probably include myself in, cannot afford a month of vacation. And what I mean by afford, I'm talking about finances. More than likely, we normally think, oh man, I'm out of money and I've still got a month left. Well, in this case, it's similar. You're out of money because you can't continue to go on vacation for a month. Who can afford an entire month of traveling, flying around, lodging, eating out, tourist attractions? You're going to run out of that and you're still going to have a sabbatical left. So what do you do that last week? Rest. Relax. Do this with me if you would. Take a deep breath on 3. 1, 2, 3. Let it out. When's the last time you took a breath that you were that cognizant of? And if you can't remember, is that a good thing? Is that a good thing? We're here at this business thing and he's telling us how to stop and smell the roses. This has nothing to do about stopping smelling the roses. This has to do about recalibrating your olfactory glands because they're out of whack. We're sensing what is urgent. We're not smelling what is valuable. And we do that enough, we're going to end up with a pile of stuff that we're going to realize wasn't worth having in the first place. I would like to propose to you that doing nothing is something worth doing. Let me rewind that and say that again. Doing nothing is something. Doing nothing. Good, you're still awake. Doing nothing is something worth doing. Now, I don't know how many road trips you take. I don't mind. I'd rather fly, but I don't mind a road trip. But I know I would balloon to 300 pounds in 3 months if I was a truck driver because I cannot drive and not eat snacks and drink stuff. I'm munching, and whatever vehicle I am in, whether it's my vehicle, I'm driving a church vehicle or something, our vehicles always make a beeline to Quick Trip. Got any Quick Trip fans? They're always headed to Quick Trip. And Quick Trip has this 32-ounce drink cup. That's for rookies. That's for newbies, man. I get the 52-ounce, we fill it up, very little ice. You get more drink that way. And then when you get it all filled up, you go get whatever food you want, and then you come back to your drink and get a couple sips, see if you're looking, fill it back up some more, and go back and get, I'm driving, but then I notice my bladder isn't 52 ounces. And I'm not sure, then, the next town's 54 miles away. And then you see a sign like this. Rest area ahead. Man, 21 miles is a lot longer than I want. I just drank 52 ounces. 21 miles? Yeah. I can probably make it. How many miles has it been? 10 more miles? I'm not sure. Well, if I just drink a little bit more, I'll be okay. Put it back down. Never once in my 51 years have I not made it to the rest area ahead. Your capacity to continue at an unsustainable pace when you know there's a rest area ahead is amazing. But what if there's not a rest area ahead? And what if you're busting through the end of the quarter, you're busting through finals, you're busting through the end of the fiscal year, you're busting through the most important sales season, and there is no light at the end of the tunnel. It actually is the headlamp of an oncoming train, according to Murphy's Law. What if there is no rest area ahead? And what if the rest area was actually affordable? And it would actually help the organization you're working for. The first sabbatical that we took was too long delayed. 3 months into the sabbatical, I was in the hospital for a 3-day stay. You may be familiar with Psalm 23. It's read at funerals. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down, and he made me lie down. Since then, the sabbaticals have come a lot more regularly, and that's been very helpful. Now, pushback on the idea of a sabbatical is pretty obvious and plain. Well, great, who doesn't want a month off from work? Duh! Who's going to do my job? And the person that would have to authorize the sabbatical, who's going to do that work? Let's come up with the opposite solution. Instead of granting someone a sabbatical, let's say they were forced to take one, and you had no choice in the matter. Because some of you, you're looking for a job eventually, but some of you, you're going to be hiring people, you're going to be employing people, you're going to have the power to make those decisions. So let's assume it's this. You have a valuable employee. They've been serving your organization for 2 or 3 years. They're a direct report to you, or maybe it's a boss that you actually love and you like. And they've been there only maybe 2 or 3 years. They've got a lot of information on the organization. They know your clients. They know your business. They have so much inside information. If they were hired by your competitor, they could tear you down. But because they're inside your organization, they're valuable, and they get in a car wreck. And they're out for a month. What do? Do you walk over to their desk, grab their nameplate, and take it to them in the hospital and says, been nice working for you? Been nice working with you. We're calling manpower, going on LinkedIn right now and getting your replacement. You wouldn't do that at all. And it's not just because you want to be kind, it's because they're too valuable. The next day, you would call everyone in the office, those same level of employees, and say, all right, Jill's out for a month. Jack, you're taking care of that responsibility. Doug, you're doing that. Susie, you're doing that. Hang in there for a month. They're going to come back, and we're going to be okay. And the bottom line is probably going to be fine. But you're going to gain some things. You're going to gain something. One of the things you're going to gain is some realization. You're going to realize, crud, we didn't know Jill did all that. Wow, man, she might be underpaid a little bit. Look at all that stuff she does. And when Jill comes back, they're going to be, yeah, Jill's back, awesome, woo! Now we don't have to do that or that. I can't believe you even do that. How do you put up with that client? They're a pain. There's going to be a realization. There's going to be more respect for Jill. The other thing that you're going to have is a redundancy and a resiliency in your company, in your organization. By the way, why is it that only Jill knows the password of that program? Is that a wise thing? Why is it that Jack is the only one that knows that client wants deliveries on Monday and not Tuesday? Is that how you want your organization to be? Of course not. There's a resiliency and a redundancy built in. And no matter what kind of organization you end up working for, or you work for now, or you lead, you've got metrics that you follow. I lead a local church, and we have metrics. Some people would say we count nickels and noses. A more contemporary term would be we count bodies in Bitcoin, but we count. We count in the same way that an organization counts, whether if they're profit or loss. And the first sabbatical that we took, the 1 month, we checked the metrics, and when we checked the nickels and noses, we were down 10%, ka-chunk, boom. No denying it. The following month, we were up 15%, and it's been continuing to go up ever since 2009. It's been worth it. It was a risk. There are some people that didn't understand it, maybe some that still don't or don't like it because they don't get one. I actually wish they would. I think it'd be beneficial, not just for them. I think it'd be beneficial for the organization they're part of, and for some of them, the business they run all by themselves. And when I came back, my staff had a better understanding. Volunteer and paid staff had a better understanding of what it is I supposedly do when I'm sitting in my office. And I would just encourage you to start the conversation. What would you do if you had a month off from work? What could you do? And not just for you. Some of you have bosses you would like to send to the moon and have not come back. But what if you could just send them away for a month? And they came back. Would you get a better boss back? Yeah, you probably would. You have a direct report that you're wondering if you should let go. Maybe you should let them go for a month so they can come back and re-engage. And you might think this can't work in my industry. All I'm asking you to do is consider starting the conversation. Consider starting the conversation. When we look at organizations, profit or nonprofit, we judge pretty harshly. We look back at how they operated in the 1950s, the 1970s, and the 90s, and the early 2000s, and we go, seriously, that was a work week? Seriously, that was the dress code? My goodness, no flexible time? They couldn't commute and work from home? What's up? We judge them harshly. And in 10 or 15 years, we will be judged harshly. And whether you feel like you'll only be judged by future generations, or a higher power, I would like to challenge you to hold closely and use wisely the most valuable resource you'll ever have the opportunity to manage, the human resource. Thank you.